Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 173, and you're watching Two Guys Who Love Spring. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and it's summer already in Florida. Today is April 22nd, 2015.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Anglican Unscripted. Okay, George and I have not recorded spontaneously for a couple weeks, so we ask your forgiveness. George has been doing lots of new ministries with his church. This is his first year as priest at the On the Hill. What's it called again?
God's Holy Kingdom Deliverance Tabernacle.
Yeah, that's right. And he's been busy doing his priestly duties. In fact, you actually went and visited a prison this weekend.
Yes, I went to jail, or Yale.
Yeah.
I forget. I did a Kairos weekend at the Sumter Correctional Institution, which is a maximum security prison down here in Florida. And if you think of the movie Cool Hand Luke, you get an idea of the conditions at Sumter Correctional Institution. Tremendous. I saw miraculous healings, lives transformed, gang leaders. This is a prison for rapists, violent offenders in Florida. We got a few. And it just was life-transforming, life-changing place.
So, and we've been in the process of my church and picking a new leader, a new vicar, rector, and that's all done now. So George and I have some free time coming up in the next 2 weeks to catch up on some of the things we haven't been able to record about, like more in-depth stuff about the GAFCON meeting. But before that, I need to take a moment and do some fundraising. George, the guy over there, is going to fly to his, 8th, 9th, 10th General Convention. How many have you done so far, George?
This will be number 8.
Number 8. Over in Salt Lake City. I think that your first one was in Philly. That was nice and easy because you live there. But it takes a little bit of money to get George, his camera, his laptop, into a hotel, fly him halfway across the country. And it seems that whenever tech comes to town, things get real expensive. Now, we were able to price out using Kayak. George can currently afford a hotel in southern Wyoming, which is pretty close to the venue, but we need to raise a little bit more money to get him there. So if you could go to anglican.tv and do /donate, there's a page that you can either click the PayPal button or you can send a check, and either one will go to expenses for equipment and travel. Now, this is a little known fact, but since the formation of Anglican TV in 2008, George, myself, and the board of directors, nobody has taken a salary from Anglican TV. Why do you think that is, George?
It's the price the market will bear.
That's right.
They say we're worth nothing, and we get paid nothing.
It's capitalism at its best, yes. We're paid what we're worth. So if you could go and click on the donate button and get George to one more General Convention. Now, there's a couple unique things that are going to happen at this General Convention, and you're going to want George there. First, he always posts the first picture of the transgender bathroom. That is what we count on George the most for. But we got a new presiding bishop, and they're talking Trek. And it's not a bicycle. It's the reimagination of the Episcopal Church. And
Task Force for the Reimagination of the Episcopal Church.
It's going to be really important that we have somebody like George there, who's been to so many general conventions before. He knows where the dead bodies are buried, to report on these things. And you guys have been faithful. You got us to Nairobi. You've got us around the world. It can't be hard to get George to Salt Lake City.
You got me to Indianapolis last time.
That's right. And Columbus.
But this time around, new presiding bishop. Gay marriage liturgies, and the wholesale alteration of the Constitution and canons of the Episcopal Church so that the dioceses are subordinated legally and absolutely to the national church. So we are just local franchisees of McDonald's or Burger King, of the 815 corporate headquarters.
That's right.
A lot of important stuff is taking place that, if you're not an Episcopalian, why does this matter? Well, the election of Catherine Jefferts Schori is why the ACNA was created. No Catherine Jefferts Schori, there would not be an ACNA today. It's just that simple. The personalities at the top drive the machinery of the church. And one individual began the campaign of lawsuits and intimidation and craziness that pushed out people like Bob Duncan and Jack Eicher and Keith Ackerman and so on and so on and so on. And if we go down the crazy path, we're going to see some more dioceses pull out.
Well, she went after Bishop Cox first, wasn't that? I mean,
No, he's old Bishop Cox.
Old,
Whenever you say Bishop Cox, you have to say old Bishop Cox.
It was just, you just go, what on earth? But send George to General Convention. Last show we did, we talked about the GAFCON primates meeting that was coming up. We offered our recommendation. Clearly, they did not take our recommendation, and we'll be talking about the show. But I was reading through the blogs and reading through some of these newspaper accounts of what happened at the GAFCON primates meeting, and there's two types of stories that came out. The schismatics are going to divide the Anglican Communion. They're called GAFCON. GAFCON is schismatic. Read more. And so I'm like, well, the press, there's probably 2 or 3 good press reports I saw out of the GAFCON meeting. George and I will set the record straight, but let's just talk about press reaction, George.
Well, let's talk. There's a lot of junk out there. The secular newspapers, by and large, have been pretty dreadful, who have written directly about it. Religion News Service has a piece that appeared in a lot of American newspapers. It was written by a reporter in Nairobi, for goodness sakes, about something that happened in London. And he starts off by saying GAFCON the schismatics. So, he's got an editorial opinion in the first line of his story, and he doesn't really know what happens. Ruth Gledhill, writing in Christian Today, had an excellent story. Madeline Davies, writing in the Church Times, had a very good story, but they didn't have the full stories because they are not clued in, so to speak, like some other reporters. So the story of GAFCON meeting hasn't been told, and what has been shared either has been defamatory or plain wrong.
Sure.
But GAFCON really hasn't helped itself in telling its own story.
Well, one of the problems, and this may just be you and I being selfish journalists, is we compare GAFCON sometimes to the Episcopal Church, which has this exciting General Convention where they're going to either rape the Constitution, elect a new presiding bishop, do all these things that are fun for journalism, and there's GAFCON where we expect a lot, and when they move at a slower pace, more like an African pace than a Western pace, we get a little bit freaked out. We said in last week's show they should call for a primates meeting. George says they should have a Lambeth. We have these big visionary plans for GAFCON. And so when they put out a statement, well, we support the AMIE and we're going to have another GAFCON meeting, George and I are understandably, selfishly a little disappointed. And it's half GAFCON, it's half us. But part of the problem with the AMIE, the Anglican Mission in England, is the AMIE, George.
The AMIE, as individuals, are outstanding people. As a collective entity, they're not ready for prime time. Why do I say that? They don't have a common agenda, a common face, a common voice, a common vision, a common leader. There's no Bob Duncan. There's no one person the GAFCON primates can telephone in London, in England, and say what's going on. They get different viewpoints. And unfortunately, at this stage of AMIE's institutional growth, the people that they do happen to know are being petty and not sharing information with other English leaders. And if they do share information, it's sort of couched in the terms of, well, Archbishop X told me this, therefore he recognizes me as your leader. Sorry, Charlie, that's not the way the world works.
No.
So that there's been no leaders, natural leaders have not arisen. And some of the retired bishops that are wonderful fellows like Wallace Ben and Michael Nazarelli, maybe from our perspective could be doing more, but maybe they just don't know how they could be doing more. I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, it's interesting because if you look back into the history of the ACNA, there was the ACN, the Anglican Communion Network, where Bob Duncan had put together this coalition of people who were not happy with the trek of the Episcopal Church, including like the Reformed Episcopal Church, people who've left already. And so there was a working coalition with command structure. Bob Duncan at the top, yeah, and if anybody in Africa, any bishop or archbishop wanted to know what's going on in America, you pick up the phone, you call Bob Duncan. There is no such resource in England. Who would you call to find out what's going on? Well, we could call Justin Welby. He's going to tell you it's all going just fine, and that's not really the situation.
And compare where AMIE is on their trajectory to where the ACNN, Anglican Communion Network, was in its trajectory in breaking away from the Episcopal Church. AMIE has dreadful press in the secular newspapers of England. Since Ruth Gledhill left, there's really been nobody of any real depth of knowledge and understanding.
We love you, Ruth. We miss you.
We really do. She really is a pro.
Yeah.
But she's been writing for, frankly, one of our competitors, so we shouldn't push her up too much.
No.
But the New York Times covered Bob Duncan in ACNA, and they had him above the fold on the first page of the newspaper. Mm-hmm. Now, why is that? Is it because Bob Duncan is so wonderfully spontaneous? Now, yes, his eyebrows do make great photos, but it's because of Peter Frank.
That's right.
What? First you tell us that Catherine Jefferts Schori started the ACNA, and now that Peter Frank is the most important founding figure of the ACNA. What have you been smoking, George? Well, let me explain to you. Peter Frank was Bob Duncan's press officer for the ACN and initially for the ACNA. Mm-hmm. And Peter Frank knew how to help reporters do their jobs. He talked to them. He encouraged them. He said, well, I can't answer that question, but why don't you look here, 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 and here? He helped us do our jobs. And so when the New York Times had stories about the rise of this new institution, it was given good press on the front pages. And I remember Episcopal News Service went bananas.
Oh, they freaked out.
Ballistic.
Yes.
They were having heart failure because the New York Times was doing real, original reporting that was sympathetic to conservative Anglicans in the United States. Mm-hmm. And we see nothing like that in England.
No.
Now, the press is different. But at the same time, there's nobody working the press the way Peter Frank did. Mm-hmm. And so you can't, friends in England who may be watching this, you cannot expect, even though your story is right and true and you have God on your side, it doesn't matter to the Times.
Okay, you need to unplug your mic and plug it back in real quick, George.
What?
Radical?
Yeah, I went all crazy. It's one of those interruptions we have here. It's called a technical interruption. We have cell phone interruptions where Mrs. Carlson asks what's for dinner, and I'm cooking. And then we have these little technical things where the mic just goes all crazy. Tap on it, make sure it's still working. This is just inside baseball stuff. So, George, you can talk, and it won't sound like a mosquito. So we have this machination of what's happening with GAFCON and the AMIE. And in GAFCON, with the first meeting, they called for the ACNA to be formed, and it happened lickety-split. That's because there was command and control. And, we say, well, why doesn't that happen right away with England? Well, there's not command and control yet. And we would hope and pray that they would be able to come together with a little bit more unity, pick a leader so that GAFCON, the primates, can know who to call and get things done and be more supportive. And, it's not a fault of GAFCON. It's not a fault of AMIE. It's something that has to happen over time. And one of your leaders has to stand up and say, all right, I'll be the guy who you call. So, or be elected to do so. We'll see what happens. Now, George and I were kind of critical of the communique as well, as we talked before the show. My point was it was giving very little specifics to the bigger issues and being very, very specific for the little issues. And, I kind of like, because of what we said before the GAFCON primates meeting, call for a primates meeting, we read this and said, I didn't need to know that about the Church of England.
Sort of in a big picture point of view, the communique did not meet expectations mm-hmm. of some people, and I've talked to people in England who are very disappointed by what was done. Yes, it's nice that they gave Bishop Ellison a nod, but the pushing and shoving and support and sort of shaking ACNA to get your act together, get moving, go, 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 go. It's not being seen this time around, and
I think you
I
mean AMIE, but yeah.
No, I said the ACNA was supported by GAFCON
Oh yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
strongly,
Sorry, yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
vigorously.
yeah. I thought you were talking. Okay, go, yeah, yeah.
AMIE is not being supported
Mhm.
vigorously, and it's right now just words and communiques while the bishops return to their own domestic concerns.
Mhm.
And at this stage, AMIE is not going to take off. It's not going to be a success if this is all we're going to see.
Well, it is interesting because we're working with different personalities. The first primates through were the lions, the Peter Akinolas, the men who really stood up to the issue of the day, which was heresy, the Episcopal Church. The new archbishops are dealing with some internal issues in their countries that were not seen by the previous archbishops. Kenya is going under maybe a future civil war. Sudan just suffered a civil war. Don't need to talk too much about Rwanda, Congo. All these places are places where domestically the archbishop has more important things to do than deal with the Episcopal Church or deal with the Anglican Communion. So it's a different atmosphere than 5 years ago.
But even so, Kevin, on
Mhm.
the personal level, the GAFCON has not lived up to expectations.
Mhm.
They've not been able to complete the sale with the global South,
Mhm.
and on one level, it's understandable. Uh, on totally unrelated, coincidental news, the Archbishop of Canterbury flew to Cairo
Weird.
immediately after the GAFCON meeting.
That's odd.
Who knew that? And gosh, that was coincidental. He met with President Al Sisi. He met with the leader of Al Azhar and the
Mhm.
Coptic Orthodox Pope. And by his side at every single meeting was Munir Anis. And Munir Anis and the Episcopal Diocese of the Episcopal Church in Jerusalem in the Middle East had front page coverage around the Arab press. Um, what can GAFCON give Munir Anis that Canterbury Connection has right now?
Yeah.
For in his minority church and a persecuted Christians, they need the voice and political influence of the Archbishop of Canterbury. You and I may think that's a joke,
No,
but it counts in Pakistan
it does big time.
and all those places. So now, how does GAFCON make the sale? Well, it has to either bring Justin Welby on board in some way or another, just like George Kerry was on board.
Mhm.
George Kerry could, you know, not criticize him very vigorously, but he supported and was clear about what he believed. Justin Welby has given no support and is absolutely clear as mud about what he believes. So you can either bring Welby on board, or you can replace Welby,
Mhm.
and they've not done either.
Yeah. So all those things, are going to be talked about in future shows and stuff like that. We're down to we've gone 17 minutes, George, and listen, we need to talk about the short list. And we're talking about the short list. George and I have the opportunity not to be influential, but to give our opinion on where the next GAFCON meeting should be. The first one, Jerusalem. The second one, Nairobi. I think the third one should come over here to the shores of America and be held in traffic-laden Atlanta. And if they can't do that, they should try traffic-laden London, George.
Oh, no, Kevin.
No.
I mean, Atlanta is just one. It's just a collection of malls. It's not really a place. It's an
Opinions
airport.
expressed are not those of Anglican Unscripted. Yeah.
It's not. It's not. Atlanta's Atlanta.
Yes.
It is
one
what it
big
is.
machination with roads that go all over the other side, and you can't get anywhere within 2 hours. It's the way Atlanta works.
And London would be horrendously expensive. Kevin, I would hold it in Orlando. We have the tourist hotels. We
Yep.
could take them to Disney World. Or I would hold it in Shanghai.
Mhm.
I would
Oh,
hold it
sure.
in South America, Buenos Aires, Shanghai, some place that's cheap, some place that you can get in and out with third world visas and passports. And if you're going to South America, you're speaking to a burgeoning Protestant population in that part of the world that would welcome a witness of Anglicanism. If you're going to Shanghai, you would see that as well in China. That's, what they call this the Asian century.
Mhm.
Well, London is the old world, it's the dying world. Europe is passe. And America, come to
Yeah.
Disney World.
That's right. Well, I think that's an important point. If there's any place I think affordable and that's going to have the biggest impact on the most people, the most Christian people, maybe the underground church in China, I think George's suggestion is best. Mine is more practical because if you go to London, you're putting it right in the Church of England's face. If you come to Atlanta, you're showing that the ACNA is the chosen province of GAFCON. Well, that's it for today's show. Yeah, it's a longer show than normal. We're sorry. We'll be taping more next week. I got some trips I'm taking this weekend and the following weekend, but I'll have fun thinking of you guys when I'm in California. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 173 of Anglican Unscripted.